Weekly Incident Watch, Number 3. May 15, 2026. 2 weeks ago, the diagnosis: DeFi has been eating a free lunch, spending less than a tenth of its losses on prevention, a ratio inverted 100-fold against traditional finance, and the banner of decentralization rationalized it. This week, the prescription: how should DeFi pay? 3 elements. 1. Pay for what you use, benefit-based contribution, something only Web3 can do. 2. Make the responsibility bearer explicit, central responsibility, distributed execution. 3. Coordinate across the industry by accepting, cleanly, the trustless paradox. Foundation, people, mechanism, in that order. First, the follow-up, because the court battle moved this week, and it moved in a direction that supports the argument. May 8th. Arbitrum voters backed the $71 million recovery plan despite the ongoing U.S. litigation. May 9th, Judge Garnett of the New York Federal Court issued an order modifying the restraining notice. May 12th, Aave, complying with the order, launched a binding vote to move the money. Supplemental briefs are due May 22nd, the hearing is June 5th. Judge Garnett's order was a compromise that fully favored either side. 3 parts. The money may move, the frozen ETH can be transferred, by vote, to an Aave-controlled wallet. The voters will not be punished. The judge explicitly wrote that those who vote for or execute the transfer do not violate the restraining notice. But the terrorism victims' claim survives. If they ultimately win, Aave hands the money over. And here is the fact that matters. DeFi's prize decentralized voting could not, on its own, make this transfer safely. Only after a judge added one line, the voters will not be punished, could it move. Human authority injected legitimacy from outside the code. If that role sounds familiar, it should. Functionally, Judge Garnett played the part of the trustee from the 2008 Madoff case, where the bankruptcy court appointed attorney Irving Picard to adjudicate competing claims over recovered assets, who gets them, in what order, and how, ultimately recovering over $14 billion. DeFi has no such role as an institution. So each time, it depends on an ad hoc order from a U.S. federal judge. How to structure that dependency, that is this week's subject. But copying traditional finance has limits. Laws get hollowed out over decades by lobbying. Regulatory supervision breeds rent-seeking. Industry self-regulation has no teeth and moves slowly. And the deepest limit, for sharing security costs, TradFi adopted an ability-to-pay model. Those who can pay, and new entrants ride along. Basel capital requirements, deposit insurance premiums, compliance costs, all apportioned by scale. Why? Because measuring benefit received was too costly, information was asymmetric, and verification was expensive. 3 walls forced the compromise. Web3's 3 inherent properties break exactly those 3 walls. Programmability breaks the tragedy of the commons, bake the contribution into the protocol layer, and free riders structurally vanish. Transparency breaks information asymmetry. Every protocol's volume and TVL are fully visible on-chain, so benefit becomes computable, by the second. And verifiability breaks the verification cost. Anyone can confirm the calculation, free, instantly. Pay for what you use requires all 3 conditions at once, and TradFi paid heavily on each. Web3's cost on all 3 is near zero. That's why benefit-based contribution becomes implementable, for the first time. So here is element 1, concretely. Each protocol automatically contributes a tiny slice of transaction fees, say 5 to 10 basis points, set by industry agreement, into an industry-wide security pool, via smart contract. The contribution is proportional to TVL times transaction volume, which is what benefit-based means. Execution is automatic, no human judgment, near zero operating cost. And there is no escaping it, the structure is opt-out impossible. This is not a plea for solidarity. It's pay fairly, by how much you used, supported by structure. The pooled funds serve 2 uses. First, prevention investment, industry-wide contracts with real-time monitoring services, a shared threat intelligence system, jointly commissioned audits, aggregated bug bounties, and formal verification tooling. The analog of TradFi's anti-money laundering and transaction monitoring, but funded benefit-based. Second, recovery insurance, attack detection, frozen fund management, automated distribution to victims, and litigation costs, exactly like the current Aave suit, replacing after-the-fact fundraising with predefined rules. And non-contributors get excluded by composable gating, not accepted as collateral, hidden by aggregators, not listed. Element 1 gathers the money automatically. Then comes the second question: who spends it? Who selects prevention targets? Who decides insurance payouts? Last week's diagnosis said diffused responsibility, a structure where no one bears it, is the root cause of the free lunch. So the answer is clear: centralized responsibility, distribute execution. The follow-up showed it precisely. Without a human who adjudicates and bears responsibility, the transfer could not proceed safely. DeFi must build that role inside itself. But there's a serious problem. People willing to bear central responsibility are critically scarce. The reason is simple. Responsibility is heavy. Misjudge, and you're criticized, sometimes legally liable. Meanwhile, the reward tends to be one-off. Under those terms, the more capable the person, the less they want the role. And if nobody steps up, the responsibility bearer exists as an institution but is hollow inside, and the free lunch survives after all. The answer is a Web3 native incentive, a permanent, on-chain track record. Everything a responsibility bearer does is recorded: decision history, bond maintenance, responses to incidents, accumulating as unforgeable, portable credentials. Served 5 years on Aave's council with no incidents, prevented 3, stepped down without a slash, that record cannot be erased. Unlike a resume, which is self-reported and fades between jobs, an on-chain record built at Aave is automatically referenced at Morpho. When a new risk committee forms, credential holders are auto-added to the candidate list. Reputation compounds across the industry. The reward isn't just short-term money, it's a lifelong, industry-wide reputation. The reason Vitalik holds influence without formal authority is exactly this accumulation. Element 3 starts by admitting a paradox DeFi has long looked away from. The flag says trustless, trust the code, trust no one. In reality, DeFi trusts other protocols every single day. Aave accepted RCTH because it trusted KelpDAO's operation and the information it emitted. Morpho liquidates based on prices it trusts an oracle to emit. Every piece of composability rests on trust in a counterpart's stable operation, and the KelpDAO incident was precisely an attack on that trust. Here's the key: trusting is not the mistake. Composability is DeFi's strength. The problem is that the trust is implicit and opaque. The answer is not to stop trusting, but to make the object of trust transparent. Concretely, 3 mechanisms. First, transparent circulation of emitted information. A protocol's state, prices, and anomaly signals become verifiable by the whole industry simultaneously, in code, so the moment an attack signal appears at one protocol, the warning propagates industry-wide. Second, dynamic authority management. A responsibility bearer's authority is not fixed. Bond above threshold, 0 slashes in the past year, track record above the bar, active within 30 days, all auto-checked by contract, and authority auto-expires when unmet. Third, execution transparency, identity public, and every decision on-chain. Centralized responsibility and full transparency coexist. You do trust, but the object and grounds of that trust are programmable and visible. Put the 3 together. 1. Benefit-based contribution, the foundation, free riders structurally vanish. 2. An explicit responsibility bearer, staffed through the transparent incentive of a permanent record. 3. Industry-wide coordination that accepts the trust paradox and makes it visible. This is not a decentralized versus centralized debate. Centralized responsibility, distribute execution and verification, design incentives with transparency and permanence, possible precisely because of programmability. And the closing point, the current core battle is the old generation's fight, a TradFi style patch that deserves short-term support. But even if Aave wins, the structural debt remains. With prevention funded in advance, the attack signals, the config change, the abnormal mint, the instant collateralization, get stopped before deposit, and the May 5th court battle never exists. The world where the incident didn't happen is the more DeFi-like world. That's the prescription. The May 5th court battle should be recorded as the start of that transition. Check any contract at the Ninjaskin bot on Telegram. Proof of concept, investment, and grant conversations are open at the usual address, and the white paper covers the architecture. See you next week.